In the corridors of American power, alliances are forged and broken with dizzying speed. But few have unraveled as spectacularly as the partnership between President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk. Once united by mutual interests, turned Trump's populist agenda and Musk's technological ambitions, their relationship became a symbol of the interaction between politics and innovation. Yet, as 2025 unfolded, cracks widened into chasm. What began as a strategic alliance has now devolved into a public feud, with both men trading barbs, threats, and accusations across television screens and social media feeds. With Trump pushing a controversial tax and spending bill, and Musk warning of economic catastrophe, the nation is left to wonder what cards are these titans really holding, and who will blink first? Welcome to Think Tank.
Donald Trump is his name, and he's there to stay.
As unlikely, impossible is now reality.
We will make America powerful. We will win, win, win. And we will make America great again. Let's do it all in Paris. We will very quickly make America.
The Time article examines the escalating feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, once allies but now public adversaries. Their clash, fueled by Musk's criticism of Trump's major spending bill and Trump's threats to cut federal contracts with Musk's companies, has captivated Washington and distracted from Trump's legislative agenda. The dispute has divided the Republican base, with some backing Trump, others supporting Musk's fiscal concerns, and many hoping for reconciliation. Meanwhile, Democrats may see new opportunities as Musk distances himself from Trump. The standoff highlights the unpredictable influence of both figures and the potential impact on policy, party unity, and the broader political landscape as the drama unfolds. Welcome back, and we're joined by two guests with unique perspectives on this high-profile feud. Ms. Ginger Chapman, a lawyer and political analyst from Washington, and Mr. David K. Johnston, a professor at Rochester Institute of Technology from New York. Welcome to Qnews and to Think Tank. And let me start here with Ms. Ginger, and let's start. How would you, from your point of view, describe the evolution of the Trump-Musk relationship from alliance to conflict?
Well, thank you for having us today, Mona, and greetings to your viewers. And initially, on its face, this Trump-Musk feud, it looked like billionaires behaving badly. However, as this has developed, we are now seeing that they may be going through a high-stakes divorce. And this is not just any ordinary feud. This has implications for our stock market, for many of our institutions, and more importantly, for the Republican Party. Because what we are seeing is initially Trump and Musk were excellent friends, and Musk did this high-profile work with Doge. He cut $175 billion out of the budget. He received a lot of applause, praise, his ego was stroked. And then Congress turned around and restored all the funding. So Musk feels like his work was not appreciated now. And then also Trump withdrew from consideration the man that Musk wanted to run NASA, our Air and Space Agency, because Musk's pick was a big Democrat donor. And so Trump removed him. So Musk's feelings are hurt. He personalizes things very quickly. We've seen him come out guns blazing, talking about Trump is on the Epstein list, talking about Trump's big, beautiful bill. And what's interesting is, as we've seen, Trump doesn't really, he's not really bothered by sexual accusations. We saw with the Stormy Daniel hush money case in New York. Trump took that very calmly. Same thing with the Epstein list. What we are seeing, though, is Trump's pride is caught up in his big, beautiful bill. That's his baby. So when Musk called his bill a disgusting, pork-filled abomination that will drive Americans into debt slavery, this was too much for Trump. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing, well, the other thing is Musk owns X, and the X platform has become the Republican platform. The Republicans love Musk because he opened up free speech on X. So this complicates the situation. The Republicans are taking camps. One side is attacking Musk. We see Trump's best friend, Steve Bannon, wants to deport Musk, see SpaceX nationalize it because Starlink is too important. Then we're also seeing Musk supporters attack the bill. Musk attacking the bill may actually get the Senate Republicans who are opposed to the bill to vote for the bill to not be seen as disloyal to Trump.
Right, we'll get to that. We'll get to that, Ms. Chapman. Let me go to Mr. David. And from your reporting, how did the Trump-Musk alliance originally form? This is one issue. And what caused it to fracture?
Well, this all began with Elon Musk putting $250 billion into Donald Trump's campaign and helping him get to the White House. And there's good reason to think that there are unknown other financial relationships between Musk and Trump, because Trump refuses to fill out his legally required disclosure of his finances. Donald is on the hook for over $600 million in two separate civil cases that he lost. And it could well be that there's a guarantor behind the surety bonds, and that could be Elon Musk in some fashion. Throughout this relationship and the creation of this fictional agency, Doge, there is no Department of Government Efficiency. Only Congress can create government agencies. We've lived through a very bizarre period. Your other guest mentioned $175 billion. Well, at the end of the day, we're going to find out that this didn't save taxpayers a penny. It imposed additional costs. For example, the severe cuts made to the National Weather Service there's very good research showing that for every dollar taxpayers put into the weather reporting system, we get $73 of benefits because all sorts of businesses rely on the Weather Service. And if you reduce the quality of weather reports, you impose costs. They're just not on the books of the government. So when we take a universal ledger approach to this, we're going to see that I think not only were there no savings, but there were added costs. And this all started to come apart when Donald would not approve the head of NASA, who was sought by Elon Musk. And remember, Elon Musk arranged to have fired the inspectors general, the contract officers, and the lawyers who were investigating abuses of contracts and failure to live up to contractual requirements, and arranging for himself additional contracts, including bringing pressure on at least 4 countries to buy his Starlink services, pressure brought by the U.S. State Department on his behalf. So you're also seeing 2 very corrupt men fighting like 13-year-old boys in public.
Right. Ms. Ginger, how do you interpret Trump's decision to threaten Musk's government's contracts? And how legal is that?
Well, once again, we are seeing that both Musk and Trump are pulling out their big guns and going after each other in public. And Trump truly does have the upper hand. Trump is winning because, and also Trump is being very, very restrained for Trump based on his personality. However, Trump did say, well, this was caused by the cutting of the EV mandates. And we have seen that Tesla has suffered greatly by Musk's association with Trump. Most of Musk's customers are Democrats who love electric vehicles, and now they are no longer purchasing the vehicles. The Republicans are not picking up the slack. They like to buy big gas-powered vehicles. Musk has suffered financially with his association with Trump. Trump threatening to pull his Starlink contracts. That is not something Trump can actually do because that is money that has been allocated by Congress. So Trump's threats against Elon are somewhat hollow. It's just the fact he is making these extreme threats to Musk's financial well-being are significant. Now, my colleague, your other guest, did mention the cuts that DOJ did make with the bill. In truth, $175 billion is a drop in the bucket because the bill authorizes $4 trillion in spending over the next 10 years. Your other guest is correct in that America cannot afford this spending. We are going bankrupt. However, one thing about Washington, when this bill gets to the Senate is going to wheel and deal, make concessions, and much of this funding is going to be restored. The bill is going to wind up costing even more once it gets out of the Senate. This is typical procedure in Washington, D.C. When D.C. saves money, that just means we're not spending as much. So the actual quibbling over the dollar amounts of the cuts to agencies, when we know that typical Washington, D.C. procedure, by the time this bill gets out of the Senate, much of this funding will be restored. So once again, Trump himself is up against the unstoppable Washington, D.C. spending machine, and this bill is just one more public debate as America's economic condition declines, because we are on the brink of a recession. Something does need to be done, and we will see how this plays out very publicly. But Trump's threats to Musk and his business are hollow threats. He will not be able to carry through on those.
Right. Now, Mr. David, we had your own perspective towards the one big, beautiful bill. How do you, or what do you have towards what Musk said about that? And do you think the tax and spending bill is worth the political costs given Musk's furious opposition?
Well, Musk doesn't have the power here. Donald Trump has the power because he's president. And Trump can, by the way, trim and cancel the contracts. The Constitution requires that the president spend the money directed by Congress, not exactly which contractors get money. And there's plenty of reason to go after Musk's contracts for violations, many violations that have been under investigation. It's also an absurdity that we are proposing to borrow $2.4 trillion more to give tax cuts to the wealthiest people in America. If you're concerned that we're going bankrupt, and by the way, the U.S. cannot go bankrupt. It has monopoly control of its currency unless the government is overthrown. We cannot, as a federal government, go bankrupt. We can make the people impoverished by too much debt, but the government will survive.
No. Let me get that straight. So the United States cannot get bankrupt?
That's correct. Any
but
government
it can empower other nations, right?
Any country with
what you're saying here?
Control of its currency, which can borrow in its own currency, by definition, cannot go bankrupt. It doesn't mean they can't ruin the economy. We can. And Donald Trump came into office and inherited the strongest economy in the world, as The Economist magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and others have all pointed out. And he's now in the process of trashing that economy through his actions. So the issue, though, I think needs to be focused on is, if you're worried about the debt, why would you borrow more money to give tax breaks, tax cuts to the wealthiest people in the country? The problem the U.S. has is we're not collecting enough revenue because we've reduced, compared to 1961, the tax burden on those at the very top by more than 60%, whereas ordinary folks are paying essentially the same rate they paid in 1961 in all federal taxes. So the outcome of this, is uncertain. The Republicans are going to be under tremendous pressure from Donald to go along with his bill that Musk calls the big ugly bill. And I think he has the better argument there financially and fiscally, but not politically, because in the U.S. we have gone from Republicans supporting the Constitution to this loyalty test to Donald, who sees himself, as I've been telling people since 2011, as America's dictator, and finally declared himself our dictator on February 26th.
Right. Ms. Ginger, that takes me to what we were speaking about. And how do you think the Republican base reacting to this dispute? And is there concern within the party about losing Musk's financial support or influence in the Silicon Valley? Could this feud impact Republican prospects in the 2026 midterms?
Well, first, when Musk tweeted that Trump would not have won the election without him, many people interpreted that as Musk saying it was my billions of dollars that won the election for Trump. However, Musk actually delivered the tech bros. He delivered Silicon Valley, the tech companies. It should be noted that Robert Kennedy Jr. is the one who delivered the most voters to Trump from outside of the party. So arguably, RFK Jr. had a bigger impact on Trump's victory than Musk. Musk's billions notwithstanding. However, this does raise the important issue that Musk has become an important monetary donor to the Republicans. There is a certain amount of angst. Will we lose his donations? However, one thing we do know is that Musk cannot go back to the Democrats. The Democrats will not have him back. So it appears that there is going to be an uneasy, very rocky relationship, but the Republican Party needs Musk because of his X platform. X has become the communication platform for Republicans, conservatives, independents, and without X, and in fact, many prominent Republican influencers are making a lot of money. They're being monetized on X. So this is the real impact to the Republican Party. And once again, the true Trump loyalists like Steve Bannon are coming out against Musk. They want him deported, investigated for immigration. They want to nationalize SpaceX. And then the Republicans, the fiscal conservative Republicans that are opposed to the big bill for spending too much, such as Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, Massey, these are the Midwestern senators. They're opposing the bill on fiscal grounds, but they may wind up voting for the bill in order to be seen as not taking sides against Trump in favor of Elon and not being disloyal. So this public feud has shaken sort of the pillars of power within the Republican Party. The Democrats are ecstatic. I would like to comment, your other guest said that America cannot go bankrupt. This is a conceit because we print dollars. We are the world's reserve currency. However, we see internationally, China, Japan, they're selling our treasuries. The United States can go bankrupt. And to say we can go bankrupt when other countries start selling our treasury bonds and we cannot borrow anymore. And for our other guests to say that the Biden economy was strong when gasoline was $4 a gallon, eggs were $10 a dozen. People could not afford food. People could not afford gas to go to work. To say that the country cannot go bankrupt, but the people can go bankrupt and be impoverished is really to mistake what a country is. A country is its people, not the government. And when the people are suffering and the people are bankrupt, then so is the country. Another point, he says tax cuts go to the wealthy. Well, the wealthy pay taxes. If you're going to cut taxes, you can only cut them on the people who pay them, and the wealthy in this country pay the majority of the taxes. If poor people do not pay taxes, then you cannot cut their taxes. We can increase the spending on welfare. So your other guest does seem to have the America's economy and practical day-to-day life is for the people, and when the people suffer, the government suffers. So we do need to get our spending under control because our dominance role in the international stage as the world's reserve currency may be drawing to a close. So we need to be forward-looking and look ahead to what the future economic global situation will be, which is what Donald Trump is doing. So, thank you.
Yes. Mr. David, do you have any comment on what Ms. Chapman here said?
Sure. I mean, first of all, she's just wrong about the U.S. going bankrupt, and it's about its economy. As The Economist magazine, a very sober business publication, said, the American economy was the envy of the world. Without a doubt, people at the bottom were having a hard time. But you know what happened under Joe Biden? And I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. The incomes of the bottom half of Americans started growing faster than the average incomes. And I track this and write about it every single year for the last 30-some years. This had never happened until now. The top had been pulling away, and that changed under Biden. The increase in income was going to the bottom half of people, 20% faster growth than the top half of the economy. In addition, as I pointed out and your other guest ignored, the tax burden on the very wealthiest Americans is 60% lower today than it was in 1961. She can read my articles documenting this from the official government record. And we are cutting things that will damage the economy. For example, one of the sources of foreign earnings in this country are students who come here. They pay full freight. So professors like me actually are people who are bringing money into the U.S. economy and helping to subsidize the education of other students. We're seeing that foreign students are not going to be able to continue like this. We are seeing China and India make enormously huge offers to research scientists because of what the government's doing to Harvard and Columbia and other schools to attract them, to get them to leave the United States. And the bottom line to all of this is that Donald, whom I've known and covered now for 37 years, he doesn't know anything about economics. He is proposing something known as mercantilism, which is an economic idea before the American government began that basically says if you have a dollar or a piece of gold and I don't have it, the only way to get richer is to take yours away. We know how to create wealth. Government is fundamental to wealth creation. Without government services, without the public furniture like freeways and airports, there is no wealth creation. And Donald Trump is in the process of doing what Steve Bannon said they were going to do. And that's to, as he put it, deconstruct the administrative state, that is, burn the government down. And the things that Trump is doing here, borrowing money to help the richest people in the country pay a lower tax burden than I do. Billionaires' tax burden is roughly 1/3 of my tax burden. And burden is the share of your income you give to the government. That doesn't work. And the idea of progressive taxes, the more you have, the more you pay, that's an ancient principle. It's in the Old Testament. It's in the Quran. It is in the laws of ancient Athens. It is the oldest surviving principle in Western civilization. Borrowing money to give tax cuts to billionaires, that only adds to the problem your other guest is so worried about. Yeah. And just to be clear, as long as the U.S. can borrow in its own currency, China or Japan want to dump their bonds, that will cause harm. But the U.S. government, as a matter of fact, cannot go bankrupt unless it's overthrown.
Right. Unfortunately, I wanted to give you a quick answer, Ms. Ginger, but my time is out here, so I think we'll be initiating this discourse once again. We thank you, both gentle people, Ms. Ginger Chapman and Mr. David K. Johnson, for sharing your insights here with us, and thank you so much for being with us as the Trump-Musk saga unfolds. Its reverberation will continue to influence American politics and policy, potentially reshaping the landscape of American power. I guess waiting to be seen. That remains to be seen. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank, which always unveils the complexities of our changing world. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates and coming up on Qnews.